Welcome back to the lab. We've been making that carbon fibre bumper there. I've actually just wrapped up yesterday's video 5-10 minutes ago, and we're back out here doing something else. I talked about these edges here, and I said I might bond some aluminium in there. I've decided against that. I mean, it would have been fine. It's perfectly fine doing that. I want something to make it easy for me to make that nice and flat. It's afternoon, nearly knock-off time, but not quite. I've got a bit of time. I've got quite a lot of carbon fibre there. A lot. There's 3 meters or something like that. I've also got a lot of signboard. Heaps of signboard, and I've just cut a couple of those. 1 second. Those lights. I've cut those to a good size for making a couple of those, right? So that fits over there. Oh, it's quite hard to film that. Right, there's that top corner. There's the bottom corner there. If we tip that on an angle, we're going to get 2 of those in that surface. Piece of cake. 2 pieces of flat, smooth, hard something. You'll need that. We've got a couple of options. We've got that. It's a polish that you apply. And it says, do not let it dry on the surface, wipe it off while it's still wet, right? So you do that. I'll do both surfaces, you don't have to. I'll show you why in a second, but I'll do both surfaces just in case. And then this is stuff called peel ply. So resin won't stick to that. So the idea with, there's quite a lot of that there, see? I've got heaps of that. The idea is, we'll do one side so it's shiny. That'll be the side that'll go to there. We won't worry about making the other side shiny because we don't want it shiny anyway. We want it to glue onto here. So we're shiny side to here, rough side to there. We'll bond it onto that and we'll be good as gold. We'll have a nice flat straight edge on our bumper, and then we'll just feather in the edge of it there and fill it in with the cocaine mixed with resin. So I'm sure it comes from where they make cocaine. No, we won't even go there. We definitely won't go there because you get in trouble. Done. Let's do that. Let's cut it all out. Oh, I forgot. I didn't need to point the resin. We need to put the rubbish away. No, just kidding. I'm not going to see. I mowed the lawns. I'm not throwing that out there. That away in a second. Oh, I've got to turn on the scales so that we don't have to fluff around with that. Reckon we can smash this out in half an hour? I think so. Alright, seeing as our mat is, our cloth rather, it's 1 meter wide. Nominally there's a tiny little bit extra because of the fluff that hangs out the sides. So I've cut that to be 500 to make best use of the materials that we've got. I could have done a long ways, I guess, to get a different height on here, if you know what I mean. That's 500. That is 500, so it makes best use of our materials. It's 300 wide or thereabouts. It's a little bit more on those particular pieces. So I've made that 900 wide. So fold it over twice. That gives us 3 layers plus the other one. It gives us 6 layers thickness, which should be, plus the 2 that are on here already, 8-ish. Not really, because it's not 100% bonded to those 2 like it probably could be, but that should be absolutely adequate for what that particular part of the bumper does. If that's weak, then it enables the whole thing to bend like this and do all sorts of funny things. But if you give that some strength, it stops all that happening, right? So it makes it more betterer, more gooderer. So I'm going to weigh that material. Basically what you're supposed to do is whatever your weight of your cloth is, that's about what you should be putting in resin. So I'm going to weigh that so I know roughly how much we've got. It's roughly a square meter. It's pretty close to. I think this stuff's like 400 grams a square meter or something like that. We'll see. Easiest way to weigh it, quite handy doing. Oh, come on, turn on scales. Third time lucky today. That's at 0. Now I'm going to pick up the cloth and put it on there, and it'll tell us what it weighs. There we go. It weighs a couple 100 grams. So we need 200 grams of resin mixed up. That was a bit off from what I thought it would weigh, but it doesn't matter. That's what it is. Now, my undoing here could be this being fast hardener, and it's probably a good solid 25 degrees C in here at least, I'd say. So once I mix up 200 mils in there, 200 grams rather, I'm going to have to work pretty fast because it will generate a lot of heat in that pot and it'll go off. I'll have probably 5 minutes to work with it, and then it'll be too late. It'll be a smoking mess. So that's all set up, ready to go. I'm going to get some spatulas and whatnot. I'm not going to use brushes to do this. We don't need to. I'm going to use a whole heap of, I'll get them out too actually, G-clamps. Sort of G-clamps. Quick clamps or whatever you want to call them. And we're going to squish this in between the two pieces of board and see where we end up. Done it plenty of times before with very good results before. We'll see what happens today. Okay, as ridiculous as that may seem, I'm expecting that should come out pretty good. Had to work quite fast. Did use up exactly, well, there's a tiny little bit there, isn't there? There's a couple of dregs there, but it's not much. Used up all the resin, went through with, it's not actually the proper tool, right? That's not a proper spatula, but that'll work. Did each layer as quick as possible and practical, because if I stuff, like I say, if I stuff around too long, it was going to go off in the pot with weather like this. I should have been using normal hardener, not fast, but too bad. It's the way it is. And so all, how many layers did I say there was? 6 layers. Bang, 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 bang. Still had enough resin left just at the end, just to make sure the top layer was wet as well. Peel ply on there. Well, all the clamps on there. Now, normally you would vacuum bag it, and the vacuum from the bag will apply the pressure to pull it all together and everything. I don't know what sort of pressure they're achieving. If they're getting full vacuum, then it's like 14 psi, isn't it? So there's probably that at least around the outside edges here, I'd say. Probably not that in the middle. It is quite a big surface area. You'd be surprised how much force you need to apply. I don't have a, well, I do, but it's up there. I might grab it off there and stick it on there so we get some pressure on the middle here. Although with the heat in that, it's probably too late. That's probably too hard, that we're not going to be able to move any resin around at this point anyway. It has squished it out. You can see it there. Squished the resin out pretty much the whole way around the outside edges. So that's good. That's what we want to see. Well, maybe not so much at this end. Apparently none at this end. Alright, I lied. We'll see what it looks like in the morning. Oh, it's not morning. It's about 7:30, so we've had a good 2.5 hours. Obviously all the clamps are removed. Got a bit of resin gooping out. Not all places. Doesn't have to be all places, just as long as we got most of it. That may actually be quite stuck to that board because it's wrapped around. That's not ideal, and you don't do that because you stab yourself with it. Good. Right, let's use those, see if we can separate that from that, see what's happening, what our result is. Okay, pretty good. Pretty good. Funnily enough, we've still got our lines from the folds that were in the peel ply. They stayed there. It's weird, you wouldn't think they would, but they stayed there and came through on the surface of our carbon fibre, which doesn't matter. I'm not worried about that at all. We've got clearly had resin, a bit missing from the corner, from the very extreme edges, but we're not worried about that at all. That's fine. It may only be the top layer or so. So that'll get sorted out when this gets glued onto something. May have been a little bit dry just right in the middle there in a couple of spots. Be interesting to see what the other side looks like, which may be a bit harder to get off. Not awful for what we want to achieve. Probably did the clamps up a little bit tight, to be fair. You can see where they were, and it's distorted the signboard, because that's not the job of signboard, right? We've asked it to do something it's not designed to do. That surface will come up pretty good if you wanted it to. Ironically, we actually don't care too much. Some little bit of air there, I would say, a few little bubbles here and there, and I think I saw there was a bit of distortion in the weave. Yeah, look where it's clamped on it really hard, it's pushed the weave out and run the pattern a bit funny, which we don't care because it's getting painted. But if we were trying to make something pretty, it would be just something to take note of, not to do the clamps quite so tight, and maybe use double layers of signboard to spread the load out if we were going to use that material. Pretty good though. It's not fully dry yet, but it's pretty stiff. It is distorting. I'll put it back in between the two pieces overnight while it fully cures, but that popped out pretty easy. Quite successful. Tomorrow, chop those bits up, stick them on there. Good as. Go inside for a drink now.